Is a narcissistic mom or a narcissistic dad more damaging to a child? If you've been quietly Googling this at 1 a.m. because you've been wondering, is my co parent brainwashing my child against me? You're not alone. Here's the reframe that changes everything. It's rarely mom versus dad. The real predictor is who controls the child's emotional reality, what they're allowed to feel, what they're allowed to say, and who they're allowed to love without consequences. And in a minute, I'm going to give you the 3 predictors that decide the damage: emotional leverage, narrative control, and loyalty pressure, and what to do when you see each one without turning co-parenting into an all-out war. I'm a doctor of child development, and I've worked with families in this exact dynamic. And when the safe parent learns to spot the patterns and respond differently, the child usually calms down over time, because at least one home becomes the emotionally predictable home again. And I've seen this with safe moms and safe dads. In my own family, my partner is the safe parent, and he's the father. And I'm telling you that for a reason. Because when you're the safe parent, the hardest part isn't usually figuring out what they are. It's figuring out what you can do about it without making things worse. So before I give you the 3 predictors, I need to clear up one piece of mainstream advice that can accidentally backfire. You've probably heard, just stay neutral and never talk about the other parent. And yes, we're not going to badmouth anyone, but totally neutral can leave your child alone with the pressure, because your child still needs an anchor for what's real. That's the difference between badmouthing and reality anchoring. All right, let's talk about what actually drives the harm. And before we get into it, if you want help with the exact words to use when your child comes home with a new script, or you're walking into an exchange with dread, download my free guide, Protecting Your Child from Emotional Manipulation. It's made for real life, fast, practical, and calming. The link is in the description. Okay, let me delay the real answer for just a second, because the reason this topic is so confusing is both sides sound convincing at first. People assume moms cause more harm because moms often have more emotional leverage. So when a mom is narcissistic, it can feel like the child is swallowed whole. A child can get treated like a confidant, a therapist, a little spouse. And the child learns, my job is to keep mom okay. That's a lot for a little nervous system. But then people assume dads cause more harm because dads sometimes have more obvious power: fear, money, intimidation, charm, status. And when a narcissistic dad flips the story, he can look calm and reasonable, while the mom looks emotional and reactive. And your kid comes home sounding older than they are, using phrases that you didn't teach them, acting loyal in a way that doesn't match who they were last week. Let's pause on that. If you've been thinking, okay, maybe I'm overreacting, but you feel dread in anticipation of your child coming back, what they'll have been told, what they'll be repeating, whether they'll be colder with you, please hear me. That dread is data, not proof, not something to spiral about, but information. Now here's where we land the plane. From a child development lens, kids aren't harmed most by mother or father. They're harmed by pressure, by who pressures their attachment, who pressures their story, who pressures their loyalty. So let's name the 3 predictors. The first predictor is emotional leverage. This is not about who has more time. I'm going to say that again because I never want you to misinterpret that. This is not about parenting time. It's about the emotional power in the relationship. Emotional leverage is about this question: who does the child feel they have to keep happy in order to stay safe? Who is not safe to disappoint? Because when a child feels responsible for a parent's emotions, whether that parent is the mom or the dad, the child will organize their behavior around keeping that parent calm. They'll say what works. They'll hide what triggers fall out. They'll become a different version of themselves depending on who they're with. And that's why you can do everything right and still feel like your child comes back guarded, scripted, or braced. Not because you're failing, because your child is adapting to emotional pressure. Now, this is also the part that can feel scary, so let me ground it. Emotional leverage doesn't mean that your child is gone. It means that your child is coping. And coping can change when there's one home where they don't have to manage the adult. Let me give you a picture of emotional leverage that's easy to miss. I hear about kids who come back and it's nothing dramatic. It's not them melting down. It's not them yelling, I hate you. It's subtler than that. The safe parent just notices my kid feels different, more careful, more filtered, less spontaneous. Like they're keeping track of what's okay to say in this house. And sometimes they'll defend the other parent really quickly, even when you didn't accuse them. Or they'll shut down when you ask something normal, like, how was your weekend? That's emotional leverage at play. It's the child who has learned, often without anyone saying it directly, that someone's feelings are fragile or explosive, and the child's job is to not trigger them. So the child starts living with an internal rule book, and that internal rule book is what wears them down over time. By the way, if you're listening to this and thinking, okay, I see the emotional leverage piece playing out, but I don't know what to do with it, go grab my free guide, Protecting Your Child from Emotional Manipulation. It gives you simple, child-safe phrases that protects your relationship without putting your child in the middle. The link is in the description. Okay, the second predictor is narrative control. This is the brainwashing piece most parents are sensing. Narrative control is when your child starts borrowing someone else's storyline, not just opinions, an entire version of reality. And you'll notice it because it feels scripted. Your child might say things like, you're toxic, or you lie about everything, or the judge said you can't do that. And you're like, you're 8 years old. Or your child suddenly has certainty about you that doesn't match their lived experience with you. And here's the trap. The safe parent hears that, panics, and tries to correct the entire story. But if the child is under loyalty pressure, asking them to agree with you can feel dangerous to them. So instead of debating the narrative, you anchor the child back to their experience. You can say, that's a big thing to think about. You're allowed to tell me anything. You don't have to pick sides with me. And then you ask a question that brings them back into their own body. When you say that, what feeling shows up? Did something happen that made you worried? What do you need right now to feel safe? Because the goal isn't to win an argument with your child. The goal is to give your child a place where reality is calm, where feelings are allowed, where they're not punished for loving both parents. That's how you weaken narrative control over time. And the third predictor is loyalty pressure. This is the most damaging one, in my opinion, because it splits the child internally. Loyalty pressure is when love comes with a cost. When the child learns, if I enjoy mom, dad gets cold, or if I miss dad, mom falls apart. And sometimes it's overt. Don't tell your mom we went there, or your dad doesn't really love you. But often it's subtle. A sigh, a look, silence. Must be nice when they do all of that for you. And kids are unbelievably sensitive to it. So they start managing the adult. They start performing. They start becoming two different versions of themselves in two different homes. And that's when you see the my kid comes home different experience. Not because your child is becoming a bad kid, but because your child is adapting to pressure. Let me say that again. Your child is not turning on you. Your child is surviving. Now I want to answer very clearly which one harms kids more, a narcissistic mom or a narcissistic dad. Usually it's the parent who wins the battle for emotional reality. The parent who has the emotional leverage, who dominates the story, who applies the loyalty pressure. That's the mechanism. It's the way that the child gets pulled into adult emotions, the way the story gets controlled, the way love starts to feel conditional. And here's the part that's hard, but also empowering. You may not be able to stop what happens in the other home. You can't control what gets said over there. You can't control the mood swings, the guilt trips, the subtle digs, the pressure that your child experiences. But you can become the home where your child's nervous system gets to exhale, where they don't have to perform, where they don't have to manage you. And this is where I want to give you a framework that I use all the time because it helps safe parents stop panicking and start parenting with purpose. When kids grow up around these dynamics, I tend to see three paths. One path is what I call the internalized harm path. That's where the child absorbs the pressure and turns it inwards. Anxiety, perfectionism, people-pleasing, shame. I'm responsible for everyone. The second path is alignment. And sometimes it looks like alienation over time. That's where the child learns the The safest thing is to join the powerful parent's story and they start outsourcing their reality to that parent. And the third path, the one we're fighting for, is the resilient child path. That's the path where the child learns my feelings are allowed. I can love both parents. I don't have to carry adult emotions. I can think for myself. And I want you to hear this next part without pressure, just clarity. That resilient path doesn't happen by accident. It's built. And it's usually built by the safe parent through consistency, emotional steadiness, and a home environment that doesn't require your child to perform to belong. So let me give you a simple do this, not that, so that you don't get emotionally hijacked when your child comes home with a new script. When your child says something sharp, don't rush to prove that they are wrong. Don't interrogate. Don't turn them into a witness. Instead, do these three things. You regulate first, you validate the feeling, and you anchor reality gently. That can sound like, okay, I hear you. That's a really intense thing to carry. In this house, you're safe to love both parents, and you don't have to solve adult problems. And if you mess up, because you will sometimes, repair is your superpower. You can say, I got overwhelmed earlier. That's my job to handle. You didn't do anything wrong. That one sentence teaches your child adults can have feelings without making it my responsibility. That's resilience. Now, this is important. If your brain just went, okay, but what do I do if the other parent is escalating and I'm running out of time? I hear you. And this is exactly why the next piece matters, because the next step isn't just understanding the mechanism, it's having a plan for exchanges, a plan for what to say when the child is cold, a plan for how to reality anchor without bad mouthing. I have a full video that walks you through that step by step. It's called How to Emotionally Protect Your Child While Co-Parenting with a Narcissist. I'm going to put it here because it's the practical day-to-day strategy, not theory, but what to say, what not to say, and how to stop feeling like every interaction is a trap. And if you want support right now, don't do it alone. Go download my free guide from the description, Protecting Your Child from Emotional Manipulation. Because when you have a clear framework and calm language ready to go, you stop second guessing yourself and your child starts feeling, at least here, I can breathe. Grab it and then go watch the next video.